We are back.
We're back.
Smoke Bake Sear podcast. How y'all doing? Nick here,
Zach.
and we are here with President of Hasty Bake Grills, Rich Alexander. Say hi, Rich.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good. We were able to wrangle Rich in the middle of a workday here.
That's right.
Break him out of his incredibly busy schedule.
You are welcome.
Busy, I appreciate that.
Hey, every day, man. We saved him from having to talk to people he didn't want to talk to.
That's
that was
right.
really what it came down to. No, this is going to be fun. So we've kind of been on this tangent for the last couple months of, as we started this, of giving some of the history of Hasty Bake. Heard from Adam Myers, who spent quite a bit of time here and obviously kind of went on into Burnco and still has a really good relationship with Hasty Bake. Came into Jay Johnson, who gave us a really good kind of exhaustive history of Grant from the beginning all the way up through kind of the last sale from Grant. And I think the natural point to pick that up is with Rich Alexander, who purchased it beginning in 1994, and kind of going from there. So, Rich, what I wanted to do, and this is fun because Rich is Zach and I's boss, so he's going to keep us in check. Normally, we try to keep everybody else in check on here,
Right.
But what I kind of wanted to do is let's start from the history of Grant selling the company into kind of how that led into you being involved, and then eventually you fully purchasing it, and kind of go from there for us.
Okay, you bet. And some of this I'm not as know as much detail, but Grant sold it to the Simmons family, and it's my understanding the Simmons he was either his banker or his financial guy.
Okay.
So he bought it, and they ran it for about 7 years. And a lot of people in town may know Jeff McMains. He was the son-in-law. His wife at the time was Debbie.
The son-in-law of the Simmons?
Yes.
Okay.
Debbie Simmons, her maiden name, worked at Dan Lambert. And I'm sure I'm missing some people, but and they had it for about 7 years.
So there's a group of people that kind of held it all together for that 7 years.
Yeah, and if you really looked at the trends, they were doing a great job. It's always been a small company, but it was really small then. But they each year it grew, and then the Jeff had worked at Thrifty Rent-A-Car, so he knew Jim Fillion, who was part of the Thrifty Rent-A-Car and sold all that to Chrysler, so had done very well for himself. And so they were going to buy it. The Simmons, the parents wanted out, and they basically put Jim Fillion had his wife Beth be president, and so they had it for about 4 years, and that's kind of the ownership group that I was involved with took it from them. And the Fillions really, if I say something about them, they were just ahead of their time. I mean, they spent a lot of money and effort to come out with the Ranger grill that we have now, and have it where the customer assembles it. And it was really made for the Home Depots and Lowe's at the time. But it's crazy to think back then, a grill at Home Depot and Lowe's, $200 or $300 was probably the max
Right.
for a grill. And even that Ranger, which was a charcoal grill, was $400 or $500. So it just never took off. But they had kind of threw all
that was who they were originally trying to aim it toward, was the bigger box store.
And that was their plan to grow it.
Gotcha.
So they put a lot of money and effort into that, and it was just their timing was wrong. Probably 10 years later, it would have been a really good product for that.
Yeah.
And so I'd got to know Jeff McMains pretty well, and I looked at Hasty Bake. I was an engineer I worked at the Ford glass plant, so worked for Ford Motor Company. That was my first job out of school, and just didn't great first job, loved the place, but also corporate America, didn't like it, and always wanted to have my own business. So I'd been looking at a bunch of businesses, and I remember I walked into Hasty Bake, and the business broker showed it to me, and it was like $700 for a charcoal grill. That's what the Legacy went for back then.
Right.
And the bestseller, and I was like, who the heck pays that much?
So did you have any introduction to Hasty Bake as far as a cooking?
Zero.
So nothing, like you didn't grow up with them in the backyard, nothing?
Nothing. I was looking for a manufacturing company. That's what I was, manufacturing engineer. That's what I was good at, or at least thought I was good at.
Yeah.
And I almost blew it off. And then, I made a few calls. And, man, if you talk to anyone that had a Hasty Bake, just like now, right? They're like, oh, it's the best.
Right.
And then and if you looked at the data and you said, okay, the Simmons family were doing well, and the Fillions, just that product line was probably the failure for them. And that's where I met Jeff McMains early on. I talked to Jeff, and he gave me a bunch of info and was going to make an offer, but it was basically Mick Harrison and the Pendergraphs, Gordon and Travis Pendergraft. They bought it together. And they had it for a year, and the Pendergraphs decided to get out. So I bought out the Pendergraphs. And a year later, after huge marketing failure, it was like one of us has to go or this thing's really going down. So I ended up buying out Mick. So since really 95, I've been the principal owner.
Yeah, principal owner. Gotcha.
So that's a little bit of the kind of the ownership history.
Yeah. What was the shop like in those early days? Because it's huge now. I mean,
Right.
if you're listening to this right now, you can probably hear the guys banging in the back, and you're either hearing rap music, mariachi music, or some kind of Christian gospel music
That's
blasting
right.
through this wall. So there's a lot of guys working. There's
I
probably
would say country, but it's not Thursday.
it's not
so-
Thursday, so we're
yeah.
good. No, but realistically, I mean, any given day we have 50 to 70 guys working in the
Yeah.
back here. What was it like in 94, 95?
Oh gosh, we were so small. There were. I'm trying to be generous. Maybe 7 of us.
Us meaning you, whoever else was helping, and the shop itself.
Shop.
the company.
I mean, that was everyone. I mean, that was our entire payroll. It'd be nice to have that size payroll again. But it was you just. We probably sold about 1,000 grills a year, maybe a little
Still
more.
pretty impressive for
Yeah.
7 guys.
We put out a lot of grills. But we also farmed out all the sheet metal work at that time. So we did do the spot welding in house and the assembly, but everything else was farmed out.
So the cutting, the forming, everything, it came to you ready to spot weld and assemble.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So that's obviously saves a lot of manpower.
Yeah.
But it was hard work. It's funny. This all happened. Adam came in today. Adam Myers from Burnco dropped by, and that only brought up more stories. I told him I was doing this, so we started laughing about some of the stories. But there was a core group. Jason Miller, who hired. Jason Miller's only 6 months behind me. I hired him. His mother. I'd worked with his mother at Ford, and he was probably my first hire.
Yeah.
And he's still here.
Yeah.
And as you know, he's the Hasty Bake guru. If you
Right.
got a question on the grills, how they're built or anything, you go see Jason.
We love to say that, if you've bought a grill in the last, however many years.
25, 26.
Yeah.
Miller's touched it.
Yeah, he's touched it.
He's my go-to for the weird one-offs.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, man, I've never seen this hinge. How the heck did this thing get on there? And he goes, well, in 2002, between March and May, we had a shortage of this, so we had to manufacture that. And it's like, he remembers all that stuff down to a T. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
But those were fun. Back then I could run. I was always proud. I could run every piece of equipment, which I guess wasn't a whole lot, but I welded. If you got a grill between 94 and 2000, I probably welded the lift.
So if you've had a lift failure,
Yeah, you can blame me for all your problems because I had to learn to weld. Good time though. So, I mean, you can't do this now, unfortunately, but I mean, every Friday we'd go grab a bunch of beer, and Friday at noon everyone would go in the back. We'd assemble grills and drink beer.
He doesn't know we still do this. does
Right.
he?
I was going to say, yeah.
He's out golfing Friday at noon. We're still drinking beer in the back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably are.
Yeah.
What was the biggest shock to you coming in? Obviously with manufacturing experience, but nothing in the grill world, coming in kind of fresh to this.
Well, the marketing. I mean, the mistake that I made, and I think people have made over the years, is that they think you can double sales of Hasty Bake quickly. You go talk to people and they're so excited about it, and you think, oh, all I got to do is market more. And we had really got some bad advice, to be honest. But had a big marketing campaign, and it was just, I mean, it's looking back, it was so absurd. We were going to run a couple magazine ads, and we had people on. We actually hired people to answer the phone calls because we were going to have so many.
You were waiting for the.
We were going to sell so many, and
And
You know, I didn't have
yeah.
a background in marketing, but we trusted
I
this
was
guy.
waiting for
and-
that. This is what the
Yeah.
I
no
think-
phone calls.
I think we sold about 2 grills. Seriously,
Yeah.
it was terrible. It was a nightmare. But the good part is it for me is it created a crossroads where
Right.
I either had to, quit and lose what I'd already put into it, or
Right.
double down and go all in. And,
Right.
Right.
And I guess I was dumb enough to go all in because there's been quite over the years. There's always those. If you're in business long enough, you're probably going to be
You make good and bad decisions.
Right.
and-
or bad year or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Putting your payroll on a credit card or whatever you got to do
Right.
to make it work. But
It's funny. I know you spent quite a bit of time on the road, kind of marketing it yourself in the early days. How did that kind of come about?
well, it was it's so much different back then. Your dealers were your key, so we probably had 150 dealers on the books and probably 50 pretty darn good ones that moved quite a bit of product. And the dealers were typically your high-end stores. In Tulsa, it'd be like a Jack Wills.
Right.
That's probably the only. I feel like in every city now, there's only one left. And it's usually
Yeah.
the guy that's been around the longest and
Outlasted everybody else.
outlasted and has the name recognition. Jack does a great job here in Tulsa, but back in Tulsa, used to have a place called Rudy's Fireplace. So if you wanted to buy a high-end grill, if you wanted to spend more than $200 or $300,
Right.
that's where you went.
Yeah.
So there was usually every town had 3, 4, or 5 places, but we were strong in Kansas City, strong in Texas. So we spent a lot of time supporting those guys, and I put that trailer on load the trailer and drive and make a swoop through Houston or Austin or San
Now, were you
Antonio.
delivering soul grills, or were you cooking and doing demos, or
Mainly, it would be both. I mean, usually you could say, "Hey, I'm coming down. I'll do your demo." Usually, every dealer required a spring demo. I mean, that was kind of
Yeah.
part of doing business. Is hey,
Right.
we need you here, and you just kind of set your calendar and you go and you'd cook and. But usually, you could fill the trailer full of grills, and at least sell some to somewhat justify
Right.
the cost. But it was hard. We did work Dallas really hard. John McClung, who was my main marketing guy, who was his nickname was the Road Warrior because he cooked a lot more than I did, but I cooked a lot too. But I mean, he was just great in Dallas. In fact, our biggest success there was he went by the mansion on Turtle Creek. Was always kind of the place to stay in Dallas, and
Right.
the chef there was Dean Faring, who was. This is back before Food Network and all that stuff. He was a pretty as famous a chef in Texas at the time,
Right.
right?
as there was, and he just dropped the grill off with Dean, and Dean fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And Dean, who's become a close personal friend now, but has been in those days, I would say he contributed to the success of our company as much as anyone. I mean, he, now we try to get influencers and these guys, but he was our influencer, and he cast a wide net, and
Yeah.
whether we were the introductions he made for us, and telling people in Dallas this is the grill you ought to cook on, or he's doing cooking classes with our grills. But so John set all that up, and so Dallas became we just spent a ton of time in Dallas. We used to work the Texas State Fair 24 days.
Straight.
Yeah.
12-hour days. You cannot leave your booth unmanned.
Right.
So there was a lot of that back then. It was fun, difficult, but fun.
Yeah, for sure. I know that Grant kind of has mentioned over the years and had written in his book that really that was kind of his marketing strategy too, was loading up grills, getting them in people's hands, cooking for them, showing them. I know you had a little bit of a relationship with him over the years. Was there an influence of him and kind of how you did that, or advice that he gave you as far as, hey, this is the best way to sell it? Or
Well, I mean, Grant, I'd love to go to lunch with Grant because he was the one guy that I could talk to that always got it.
Right.
Everyone always has an opinion of, hey, you ought to do this, you ought to do this. And truthfully, most of them I'd already failed at. So it was fun to talk to Grant. And Grant always just said one simple thing, for every grill you sell, you'll sell 2 more.
Yeah.
And so that was probably the biggest thing that I got. And so that, and they're not going to buy off a magazine ad. They're not going to buy off this. You have to get in front of them.
Right.
And, I think the reason you guys are so successful now in the market is because you're getting in front of them with more videos and that stuff. But back then, you didn't have any of that. So you really had to go feed people. Right.
Right.
That was what you did. And you hope that you sold 2 grills at this guy in Austin, but yet he would go sell
Right. 2
2
more.
more, and then it would
that
just
guy.
expand.
Right.
And that's really how you had to grow it. But
Right.
you couldn't just buy your way for sales.
Right.
Never really have it Hasty Bake.
Yeah. I think the price point of the grills too. We've talked about this early on. And, I mean, this is a piece of advice you gave me when I first started, because I was hot to trot on. Well, if we can powder coat this and make it a little bit cheaper, we can get into this. And you're like, it's an expensive grill. It always
Right.
will be. Grant designed it to be an expensive grill, but because of the price point of that, it's that kind of product where people don't just have an immediate purchase.
Right.
They got to be convinced, and and once you're there, it's like sitting in a high end car. Like, you look at a price tag on a real expensive, say, sports car. Mm-hmm. You're like, man, I could never spend that. And then you sit in there, and that seat's are all nice and comfortable, and that
Right.
radio's real, boomy, and it goes fast and it's quiet, and you realize, like, okay, I get why people spend a lot of money on expensive cars now.
Right.
You don't get it when you just see it, but when you actually experience it,
Right.
it's a kind of a different ballgame.
So Grant, I'll tell a story. You're reminding me of something. So Grant got Stanley Marcus of Neiman Marcus hooked on the grills, and there was an article one time, I think in the Dallas Morning News, about his philosophy on buying things and why Neiman Marcus sells what they sell and all that. And he was like, no one ever seems to be upset long term when they buy something expensive and it has value. It was all about value. And his example of that was his Hasty Bake Grill. He says, I have this Hasty Bake Grill. Yeah, I probably paid more than most grills on the market for it, but every time I go outside, I beam because I've had it. It's lasted 10 years. The food's great, and so your story there just reminded me of that and kind of the Hasty Bake culture and fan base.
Right.
Yeah, I think loyalty is one thing that sets a lot of our people apart.
Yeah.
It's a weird world we live in when you're not super loyal to too many things. People tend to get loyal to cars quite a bit. If they have a hobby that requires, like fishing or golf or something, they may be loyal to a brand of club or of, rod or something like that. But most people that I know that are not, say, serious backyard grillers, competition grillers, they're not necessarily loyal to anything from a cooking perspective.
Right.
They may be loyal to grandma's piece of cast iron, but short of that,
Right.
Being a Weber guy or a Charbroil guy or a Dynaglow guy or whatever, when you aren't really into that world, you don't deep dive into, just being kind of a brand addict. But when you've kind of taken that step and, we've talked somebody into a Hasty Bake and they start experiencing it, all of a sudden that becomes one of the things they're loyal to. And then they build a hobby around that one thing. And I don't know if it's, you've made the investment, so now like you have to become loyal to it, right? Like it's one of those, like, I convinced my wife that I'm going to buy it, and now I have to do it, or else I'm never going to live it down.
That's right.
Or if it's just what the product that you get off of it is so good, you're not going to get that anywhere else. But for whatever reason, I know very, very, very few people who bought a Hasty Bake, gave it the shot that it deserved, and then moved on and went into something else.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that come from a Green Egg or Weber or something like that, but I know very few people that have bought into our product and then I found something better.
Right.
I don't know about you. It just doesn't happen.
No, one of the better decisions I made plenty of bad ones, but one of the better ones I made, and I can't remember the years now, sometime in the 2000s, I think, we decided to carry gas grills. And, man, I struggled. I thought, man, I'm going against our company. But we were always sending people to Jack Will's or Rudy's or people in towns.
Yeah.
Hey, do you carry gas grills? No. It's like, well, that's kind of stupid. They could come here and buy one. We could sell them one. It's just a distributor.
Right.
And so we started carrying gas grills. And my funnest thing always was, and it seemed like back then it happened all the time, but someone would come in and, if they said they want a gas grill, we'd just show them a gas grill.
Sure.
I'm not going to
Try to
pitch
sell you something you don't want.
That's right.
So they do the gas grill, and you give the pitch, and you'd be at the checkout counter, and they'd say, "Well, now what grill do you cook on?"
Yeah.
Well, now you open. You
That's
gave me
right.
an
Doors
opportunity,
open.
right?
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
So, and you give them your pitch on Hasty Bake, and like, well, man, that does sound good. And
Right.
and they, and then I'd make them the deal, and I'd say, I'll tell you what, you were going to buy a, $1,000 Weber or whatever we used to sell back then. I said, buy a Hasty Bake, cook on it for 30 days. If you don't like it, bring it back, and you can put the money toward a Weber. We can sell used Hasty Bakes all day long.
Right.
And man, it seemed like it always worked. And then they would come in. Now you got a relationship with these
Yeah.
customers.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And they'd come in and like, oh, that's the best decision I made. And it was awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
it was so much fun. And so, not only, and then we still sold gas grills. People that wanted a gas
Sure.
grill that just didn't want it. But you expanded that customer base for people that would have never even given us a shot.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was fun. It was fun to, I hate to say flip them because we weren't. No, it was fun to flip them. Let's just
Flip 'em,
call it
convert
that's
'em,
what we're
flip 'em.
doing.
Yeah, I mean,
So it was probably a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. A guy was in here talking about gas grills, and almost the same thing happened. And he was like, "Well, the thing is I can be ready to cook on that gas grill in 10 minutes." But so we were walking around and looking at the Hasty Bake, and I just thought, and I was like, "Well, come out here." And so I lit a fire in one of our patio grills, and I said, "We'll worry about that in a minute. I'm lighting that for something else." And we came in, and we walked around, and we're looking at the grills, and it was probably 8 minutes or so. And I was like, let's go out here just real quick and look at something real quick. And we go out there, and of course you could grill hamburgers on it. It wasn't ready to smoke, but you could grill hamburgers on it. And I was like, you could probably grill on that right now, right? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, there you go, man. I was like, you can have it ready. And, I said, you do it a few times and you'll be ready to go, You get your process down, and you can be ready to cook on these things just as fast. So
The neat thing about that little 30-day thing you said too is anybody who ever offers like a 30-day, try before you buy type of thing,
right.
they're going to cook the heck out of it for 30 days because they want to get their money's
Oh,
worth,
yeah.
right? They're going to put it through its paces to try to, get
That's
it to
right.
break or get it to not work. It's like the mattress companies that are like, sleep on it for 90 days. Are you ever taking a freaking mattress back? Like
Right,
once that
no.
is in the house and
It's
you've
there.
sweated and bled and taken out door frames to get the damn mattress in, like you are not pulling that out. I don't care if it's the worst night of sleep you ever had. Like
Right.
that's a 10-year investment.
That's right.
So you talk about Karen gas grills. What was the start of the Tulsa Grill Store, or what became known as the Tulsa Grill Store? Because originally it was just a showroom for Hasty Bakes.
Well, I can't remember. You got to understand there was no internet
Right.
when I started. So, at some point, we tried to differentiate between Hasty Bake, which is a national brand that we
Right.
distribute and sell all across the country, and our local store, which obviously sells Hasty Bakes, but we carry other brands. And so we just did that, trying to make a kind of a difference. So that we always thought it would be crazy if you live in Dallas and you want to look at Hasty Bake online, that you'd see we sell Weber's or whatever we sell at the time.
Right.
And so that was all we were trying to do there. And it's I'm not sure we ever did a great job of it. It's always you still get people that are confused.
Right. There's a lot of people that still call it the Hasty Bake Store.
Right.
Which is fine. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't
Well-
hurt us.
We've answered to worse.
I'm assuming that just kind of grew into, well, if we're going to carry this, we should carry that. And if we're going to carry that, then I guess we need some seasonings. We need seasonings, and we're going to have to bring those in. And it kind of turned into what is now the communal,
Well, yeah.
the Cheers of the barbecue world here
That's
in
right.
Tulsa.
Well, we did try to mimic Barbecues Galore. I don't know if you guys ever went.
Big
one.
national
It was
chain,
a big
yeah.
national chain that really did well for a while, and they had it was kind of if you went in there, it was a barbecue, had everything you could think of barbecue. So
Right.
we were trying to mimic them.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good store. There's still, I think, a couple of them left.
Is there?
They used to be huge.
Yeah.
Now you think you hit a big town and there might be one hiding out in the corner, but it was always a good store, like you said. They had everything you ever needed. It was laid out. Layout was beautiful. They had floor colors and different shelving colors. I mean, the merchandising of it was great. They knew what they were doing. Rich, you talked about you guys used to farm out the sheet metal work here.
Right.
Eventually, we brought that in house, which I want to talk about in a second. Did you start powder coating in house before that, or was that? How did the powder coat sheet metal thing?
Why do you have to bring that
Well,
up? Nick?
I think it's an interesting story.
Yeah.
Well, another one of those valuable lessons you learned. When the bank keeps calling you to buy somebody else's business, and they keep lowering the price, this is my advice: just keep saying no.
Yeah.
There's a red flag right there for you.
So they, anyway, our powder coater was a company out in Claremore, and they've been doing our powder coating for years, and it was going bankrupt, and we were doing okay at the time, and I thought, okay, yeah, we'll buy it. It's too good a deal to pass up,
Right.
And that's probably the closest I would say I've ever been to bankruptcy. There's probably been a couple others, but that one was, I mean, it was close. I mean, we were struggling. That thing, I buy it, it's sucking cash out every week just to do the payroll. And at the same time, a new powder coater moved into town and was gobbling up business and a lot of the existing customer base. And it's funny now because that's who we use to powder coat us. But Abital, Abital made my life a hell there for a little bit. So we did that, and I basically worked there almost nonstop. I drove to Claremore all the time and tried to turn that around, and we did. We finally got it turned around, and it was like, after 3 years, we're finally turning a profit, and then the big fire. I was actually landing from a trip, and my phone just lit up. Hey,
Turn your phone back on after the flight.
Yeah, and it's like RPC's on fire, and I'm like, what? Surely not. And all the news stations were there, and I think it was like 34 fire trucks.
Oh,
I've had guys tell me it's the biggest fire they ever fought.
Wow.
And
What made it so big? I mean, obviously you got the kilns and everything.
this is where it gets funny, and first off, I'll get to the next part, but so Bayliner used to have a trailer manufacturer out there in Claremore, and they left town, and they said, do you want all our powder? Sure. I mean, it was kind of some weird colors, and we never could really find, but like it was baby blue, but we just had piles of Bayliner powder. Well, I didn't know how flammable it was, but once that stuff caught fire, it was
gasoline.
It was gone.
Yeah.
And it was basically a gas valve that we had not turned off properly that caused the fire. But anyway, that's that story. And I remember, being distraught because I'd spent 3 years trying to turn this thing around. We literally just got it going, and then I called my insurance agent and said, man, we start going through it, and by the end of it, I'm like, oh, this could be pretty good.
Yeah.
There's worse things that happen.
Like, well, I would have started that fire a few years ago had I known that.
Insurance fraud is prevalent for a reason.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the reason right there.
That's right.
That's funny. Under your leadership, what grills kind of either changed drastically or were developed? I know that you said previously that they had kind of taken the Ranger from the rolling Ranger form that had been kind of over the years and adapted that. Like, what came under after you had it? Like, what was modified or added? Or I know the Hastings was one of those.
The Hastings was probably the big one. That was kind of from scratch. We partnered with, at that time, Fabrication Dynamics, they're no longer in business, but those guys helped me design that. I kind of just gave them an idea and worked with their engineer to come up with that line. And we were just trying to make a kind of a supersized Hasty Bake. Yeah. And it's been pretty darn successful.
Yeah.
And, I think we've had it, time's going 20 years maybe now.
Like yeah.
We did a minor portable. The old portable used to have a drawer that pulled out.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was always a problem. So we changed that to a firebox type, and then of course we redid it for the kind of the steak cook-off deal just a couple of years ago. So that was kind of the second redesign. But I would say the only thing I did, was that Hastings, because it was so expensive at the time. We weren't selling that many grills, or doing or had that much profit to kind of invest, and we without having your own sheet metal shop. When you have your own sheet metal shop, it sure makes it easier to develop things. Because the prototype costs are just so outrageous. But there wasn't a whole lot, and it was such a good design. I mean, you were like, what do you do to a legacy?
Right.
I mean, it's
right.
It's you'd like to make it look prettier, maybe for its sexier, but there's people who love the look
Oh, yeah.
that
Right.
it is. That's kind of the classic look, and so
Right.
we didn't do much, to be quite honest.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just proves how ahead of his time Grant was.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. You know, we kind of joke about it too. Is Traeger or anybody else will come out with a new model every year or two, and a lot of times it's an electronics upgrade. You know, we
Right.
obviously don't have to worry about that, but it's like a car or anything else. Like, yeah, the next year model, and I've had numerous people say like, "Hey, am I going to buy this Legacy? And next year you guys are going to come out with the improvement." I was like, "Well, that'd be the first time in 70 years that we pulled that trigger, so I wouldn't be too worried about it if I were you."
Right.
I mean, I can kind of guess at it, but what was the start of bringing in all the fabrication in house?
Well, back to the fire. So you had two options. I guess it's two. You could either rebuild, or you could take the insurance money and buy equipment. But they wouldn't give you a cash settlement. You had to either buy equipment, and it didn't have to be powder coat equipment. And at that time, I mean, all of our customers were gone. It would have taken 6 to 9 months to
rebuild.
And by then, getting your customer base, that would be a horrible business. So we took the money and bought a press brake and a laser, kind of on a whim, and that started us being able to do everything in house, and also led to what we now call HBI services, which some people may not know is our fabrication division, where we do work for all kinds of different industries, and has grown. That part has grown significantly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of when it was that fire that started, that whole production change and bringing everything in house was that fire.
That side's grown, I mean, astronomically.
Yeah.
Since then, I mean, I think a lot of people don't realize that a good chunk of our business is not necessarily manufacturing grills.
Yeah.
A good chunk of our business is not. It's a bunch of different industries that we're in, and I love giving people a tour of the shop because at first thought they open it up, and if you're standing at the front door of our store, you don't realize like how big this facility is, because it goes back kind of in a big triangle. It's a little hidden from the road, and then they walk back and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is all for grills." I'm like, "Nope, it's not even close. Like, there's so much more that goes on here." And then they walk back there and they see parts made out of 3/4 inch steel that are this big.
Yeah.
They have no idea how much kind of comes. So the fabrication side has grown immensely and has kind of become a good bread and butter piece for us. And I think it's also allowed us to pivot quite a bit, right? Where we have a little bit of a slow time in grills, we can kind of pump some energy into the fabrication and vice versa.
Oh, it's a great combination. I did deal with a lot of fab shops throughout Tulsa before we did it in house, and I could kind of see the successful ones and the ones that didn't do well. But one, having your own product line is huge, because other than COVID for 2 weeks, we've never had a layoff.
Yeah.
We've always been able to, worst case, build grills.
Right.
I may not sell them for 6 months, but we'll keep the guys busy and we'll build grills.
Right.
And so, having that knowledge base and not having to have layoffs is huge. Not only for morale, but just guys that, I know how to do this part, I know how to do that, and that was always what we struggled with when we were farming it out. The quality had just gotten so poor because they, especially back then with the ups and downs in the oil business, which is what typically drove most of this work. You just had guys that would, you'd be like, "Man, you made great stuff for 2 months, and now this stuff's crap." And we changed operators or whatever. So, no, it's been a great combination, and I think we already had that quality mindset here. From if we're going to sell I don't know if we're the most expensive, but we're up there.
Yeah.
If we're going to sell the most expensive charcoal grill in the market, you better care about quality.
Right.
And so our employees have always bought into that and been proud of that. And so if you carry that same formula over to the fab side, which I feel like we've done a really good job of, you get some success there.
Yeah.
Without this we don't even know where this part goes. We don't care.
Right. Well, it's also creating a mindset change in employees that everything we do, we have to focus on quality.
Right.
It's not just one piece. Like it's everyone's responsibility for QC, right? And we succeed and fail in that in different ways, and we learn and we adjust. But I know that was one of the big reasons why Grant bought Hasty Bake back from Plano, from Home Metal, back in the 70s, was he just said, my name was on it and I didn't like the quality they were putting out anymore. So I bought it back.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said for standing behind that and ensuring that you can kind of continue to produce that. I don't know the whole history of this, but I do remember it was kind of an interesting thing. We had a PO years ago from Crate and Barrel.
Yeah.
Tell me how that happened and volume and that whole, because that was kind of fun.
Oh, that was I don't know if it was a success story for us. I don't think it was a success story for Crate and Barrel. So, Chad McMains, who is Jeff McMain, remember we talked about Jeff earlier?
Yeah.
Was his son. So Chad had come to work for us, young guy and aggressive sales guy. And
I think there's still some videos out there on YouTube with Chad.
Oh, there is. Yeah, for
no,
sure.
That's right. And so Chad got a lead on this, and he didn't tell me anything about it. It's probably good. No, it's not probably good. It's really good, because I would have told them, you guys aren't probably making a really good decision. But they wanted to sell Hasty Bakes, and they used to carry a grill each year, and and I did talk to them at one point, and they even convinced me to some degree. No, we have a different customer base. If we put it out there, they buy whatever we tell them. And I said, okay, but that's a lot of grills. And
Yeah, we weren't talking 5 or 10 grills.
No.
this was 1,000 grills. It was 1,000 grill purchase order. It's the biggest one we've ever received. It's still
What
today.
kind of lead time do we have on that PO?
It wasn't much, because they wanted it, and this is where, again, they made their mistakes. Not only did they, instead of just having us drop ship it, they wanted it in their warehouse, and they wanted their own packaging. So they had us completely redo all the packaging, which really wasn't as good as what we were doing, but that's what
Right.
they wanted. And so, I remember we shipped them, and I was like, I'm reading the purchase order going, what's my buyback on this thing? And I
Yeah.
keep reading, and there's nothing in there.
Right.
Because even before we even agreed to the deal, I'd read it. But now I'm like, they're not going to sell 1,000 grills. They're going to be
Yeah.
stuck with these grills.
Right.
And sure enough, about right as the last order was shipping, they were like, hey, can we cancel that last PO? And I was like, and I would have, but I mean, it was their packaging.
Right,
It wasn't
Yeah.
our specs.
right.
And I was like, no. I mean, if you guys had just drop shipped or that,
Right.
fine. But no, you got to take them. So, and this is always the weirdest thing to me that I don't understand about big companies and the way they think. And they obviously made a mistake, but it wasn't 2 months later. They start discounting those. I don't know if you remember. This is where everybody gets the $400 legacy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right.
And they're advertising these grills for $400, and they paid more than that.
Right.
And I remember.
So warehouse
Laughing.
space is
That's
getting more
it.
and more
That's
expensive
it.
these days.
So
That is correct.
Like I'm calling I don't want grills out there for $400.
Right.
So I'm calling all kinds of people that I
Yeah.
know. Say, hey,
Yeah.
I got a
Go-
Christmas deal for you
Right.
to give your employees or whatever. You need to go buy these for $400. And
Yeah.
Right.
and I had one buddy in Houston. I think he bought. I know he bought 10. He may have bought 15. And so we at least got him. We helped Crate and Barrel dump them, I
Right.
guess is
Yeah.
what I would say. But yeah, that was a good sales by Chad. And
Is that mid 2000s, maybe?
oh man, I don't know.
That's funny.
Yeah.
We do hear people every now and then. We'll have not necessarily price increase because we don't do that too often, but
Right.
but somebody will start going off on price and this is more expensive than that, and someone's like, well, when I bought my first Legacy, I paid $400, and we're like, I know where you got that.
We know where you got that. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. All right, when you are, let's get away from the business side and let's talk cooking a little bit because that's what we really like to do.
Right.
When you're grilling at home, what do you got on the grill?
Probably embarrassing. Anymore, it's fish.
Yeah?
That's about
Yeah.
all I cook.
Really?
I'll cook steaks for the kids, and I'll do pork shoulders when if there's a big group coming over because that's so easy. And
Yeah.
and occasionally ribs.
I remember
but,
him saying that, so next time he's like, hey, will you guys do some pork
That's
shoulder?
right.
I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You said it was pretty easy.
Yeah.
So that's really it. I don't cook like I used to. I think I'm burned out from all the cooking
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
demos over the years. But I think you guys know. But it cooks fish just.
Oh yeah.
You never eat anywhere fish
No.
out as good as
Right.
No.
the Hasty Bake does, and but I laugh over the years. When I first bought Hasty Bake, I was like, I'm going to be the best rib cooker of all time.
Right.
Yeah.
And I cooked ribs every weekend.
Yeah.
And now, you're kind of like,
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
eat
yeah.
them every weekend for 2 or 3 years,
Yeah.
you're kind of like, I mean, I still like them on occasion, but not like I used to.
Right.
And then I was the steak guy. I was like, I cook steaks 2 or 3 times a week. Man, I'm gonna have steaks.
Oh yeah.
And then I was like, I don't really eat steaks anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's funny how I guess I'm just old.
It happens.
I mean, you and I go through this when we're trying to figure out, for whatever next event we've got coming up, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do, and we get so caught up in the whole, we'll throw pork butt out there, and we're like, it's just
so done with pork butt.
yeah, because but we forget, to other people that have never had a pork butt off of a Hasty Bake, it's people will love it, and it's going to be great. And we're just like, I mean, we just throw it out there and it cooks. I mean, we really don't even have to do anything to it, to make it taste that great. So it is funny how, you do enough of one thing and you're just like, I need to do something else.
Right.
Yeah.
We're a big part of our marketing is event marketing.
Yeah.
So we go all over the country doing different events for competitions and festivals and things like that. And we're doing one in Kansas City this next week.
Yeah.
Zach and I, and Jennifer's coming along with us. And it would be real easy to say, like, we'll just cook some pork butt.
And
but
it was on the radar.
It was on the radar.
Yeah.
I can't even show you the pages of notes that we have
yeah.
but what if we tried this? And we'll go down to the store and experiment and, call up butcher friends of ours. Like, what can we get for a good price on this? And all of it is more difficult than pork butt.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't want to do it, but it's like, I'm just trying to do something different.
Right.
Because I'm so over. But again, like, you cook a pork butt and people are like, oh, it's the best thing I've ever had. And you're like, it's hard to say no to it. But when you're the one doing it day in and day out, you're like, I'm just so over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get it. You're making me think of some demo days. A couple of things came to mind when you were talking about that. So my favorite one, I guess I can admit it now, but Sam's used to sell Tyson frozen chicken wings.
Yep.
Honey
barbecue.
Honey barbecue, that was
Yeah.
it. And I'm telling you, if you cooked them on a Hasty Bake,
People
thought
They were pre-cooked, weren't they?
Oh, they were
Pre-smoked.
pre-cooked. You weren't doing anything.
You could microwave
heating
them and they
them
would
Yes,
be fine.
Yeah.
it was a complete no-brainer.
Yeah.
And you would cook those on the grill, and people would just,
What'd you do to those?
oh my God, that's the best chicken I've ever had. And so I do these demos. I always, I go get my clear sack,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
pour them in there because
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't want to see the Tyson.
Right.
But, how'd you marinate? I can't let you
Yeah,
know.
it's
man.
It's a special.
It's
Yeah.
a secret.
I
that-
still get
that's
that.
when
One.
you-
Go ahead.
I was just saying that and Eckridge sausage. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know if y'all still do it, but I'm telling you, they used to line up at the Home and Garden Show,
Yeah.
40 deep, to get the tiniest sliver of Eckridge sausage.
And
And
Eckridge
we
is
would
not. It's
sell-
not a high end like. It's
Yeah.
Jimmy
It's
Dean
fine.
sausage is
It's
what it
fine.
is.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was always good. But I mean, you do that as a demo, and people would
Go nuts for it.
go
Oh
nuts.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I just think there were all these little goofy things you do because you're cooking a demo. You need it to hold well.
Right.
You need it to look decent.
Right.
Yeah.
And obviously the taste part. But you made me think of the old chicken wings from Sam's.
So I love occasionally, when we're R&Ding something or getting something ready and we're burning fire on the patio out there. As people come in and I won't have anything on that grill, and we're literally just
It's just
testing
charcoal
something.
at this point. Yeah.
And people will be like, "What are you cooking out there?" And I'll be like, "Oh, nothing." And they're like, "Yeah, you're just not going to tell us." And I'm like, "No, really, we're not.
Just open it up. There's nothing on the grill.
We're not cooking anything." But it's just funny.
I've done over the years quite a bit of catering. Used to, kind of still a little bit on the side, but I used to have a full-blown catering company. And there were little things that we would constantly serve that people thought were like, this is family recipe.
Yeah.
Like, and you're not going to tell us. And normally I wouldn't tell them, but like the truth is, it was like, I bought that sausage from Sam's,
Correct.
and it's their standard jalapeno cheese sausage, whatever it is. And they're like, this is the best thing I've ever had. And you're like, well, it's been on a Hasty Bake, but other than that,
Right.
or the most recent one that people rave about, and I'll tell it here because we only have a few thousand people that'll see it versus
Right.
a million. The Sam's Club brisket beans.
Oh,
Have you had these?
Huh.
they're
So it's not the
outstanding.
can, it's not
Yeah.
like the big number 10 can. It's like the little plastic, they're probably 16, 30 ounce plastic thing.
Yeah.
And it's just a really good barbecue baked bean with chopped brisket in it.
Yeah.
to this day, like, and a lot of times we'll, when we do an event, like we'll do a bunch of number 10 cans of Bush's baked beans, and we'll throw some barbecue
Yeah,
sauce,
we'll
some
doctor 'em
seasoning,
up
doctor it up, put some smoke on it. These ones, you don't have to touch them. You literally
Just
dump it from
warm
the
'em up.
plastic into a pan and warm it up. And people will say, that is the single greatest
Yeah.
bite
Oh,
of food
yeah.
I've ever had in my entire life. What is the secret? Like, well, you got to start with a really good baked bean.
Yeah.
And then you got to put fresh brisket in it, and you do this whole thing, and it's just, no, you're dumping it from the
That's
container.
right.
So in a pinch, we'll tell everyone who's listening to this, if you're looking for something to awe people, go down to Sam's,
yeah.
buy the brisket baked beans, warm them up. You
Absolutely.
got to put them on the hasty bake, a little bit of smoke in it. But
Yeah.
aside from that, that's a fact. And I wish they were not so ineffective cost-wise.
I know.
They're like 4 times the cost of buying a can of beans,
Yeah.
but they're really damn good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a secret seasoning or recipe or something that you kind of still like have gone back to over 10, 15, 20 years and like I still use? Is it Cavender's or Lawry's or whatever it is?
Or any new ones?
No, we won't talk about the one I won't use. But the one that I really wish I still had, and some people may remember Nick Mihos, but Nick the Greek was kind of a Tulsa guy and a big Hasty Bake fan, and had his own seasoning and marinade, and he and I even worked the Tulsa State Fair a couple of years doing a food booth, which was, I think we figured it out. We made about $3 an hour
sounds
after
right.
we split our profits,
And killed yourself
yes,
for about 2
absolutely
months.
killed
Yeah.
ourselves. So it was stupid. But love that guy, and but man, he had a thigh recipe that when I used to cook, for a while there, I did enter a few barbecue contests. So, but I mean, it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
All you did was you marinated it, in his stuff, and then you'd put some Hasty Bake rub on it before you cooked it, and you'd put a little sauce on it, barbecue sauce at the end. And I mean, I never served it that people didn't say that's the best chicken
Yeah.
you ever had. I've been chasing that since. Like I've
Right.
tried things, and because it's always fun when someone goes, "Oh, that's a phenomenal." And you just knew
Right.
that if you cooked that one, they were going to be wowed.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that would be the one that stands out. I mean, I still love Dale's on steaks, but I don't, like I said, I don't cook steaks very often.
Right.
Yeah.
So but I love Dale's. But nothing really. That's why I'm always bugging you guys. We're selling so many different seasonings now, and I can't
Yeah.
ever try them all. But I like, okay, give me a winter chicken recipe again, or give me a, whatever it is.
One of our Hasty Bake Grill community guys is married into Nick the Greek's family, and he has the recipe, which apparently is closely guarded and will never be released in any way, shape, or form. But every time I see him, I bug him. I'm like, hey, you guys want to part with that yet?
Yeah.
I don't know why they wouldn't. I tried to, when he passed away, I had tried to get it, and of course she thought she could sell it for more, and I wish she'd. And I was like, hey, if you can get that much, that's a great
Sure.
deal for
Yeah,
you.
do it.
You
You just want to see it out there.
I wanted to see it out there. Nick had worked so hard, and it was my only deal to her was I'll give you a royalty and we'll help promote it.
Yeah.
Right.
That way, it was really no risk to me. But if she was going to get $100,000 or something, I'd say take it. I wouldn't. And so I'm not saying she
Yeah.
screwed us over or anything.
No,
I'm
no.
just saying she was. I wish we still had it because it's phenomenal. And at one time, Adam Manners from Burnco, I thought he was going to try to come out with it, and he had talked to some people, but I don't know where that is. But I didn't know that story. Well, we're going to have
Yeah,
to.
I know. We gotta make some phone calls
To
and
twist
see
some
what we can-
arms. I need that
Yeah.
desperately.
We can. Surely there's trade work somewhere, right? That we can.
I'm just pull a Rick Nackey and trade a couple of grills for it, right?
That's right. That's right.
Now, it is kind of funny over the years I've ran into seasonings that there's one, Clint Pollard turned me on to one years ago. It was a guy in Arkansas who used to produce it out of Hot Springs, and I think it was called Fuzzies or something like that.
Okay.
And the guy died. They used to sell it through a butcher store, like in a lot of these butcher shops, because they're licensed, they can kind of mix or make whatever they want. So
Right.
they would make it up in store, had a little home printed label on it. And it's like some of the best seasoning you've ever had in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guy died, and they stopped producing it. And Clint had this bottle, and he was like nursing it.
Yeah.
And I know a company that you can take it to and they'll reverse engineer
Right.
it, but you have to buy 200 pounds at a time in bulk to get them to do it, right? And he loved that seasoning so much, he was about ready to take it to him to have him use that last quarter bottle to figure out what was in it. And him and I went down to Hot Springs, this 4 or 5 years ago, and that butcher shop was like, we bought the recipe and we're making it again. And he's like, thank God, because I really didn't want 200 pounds of it. I just wanted to not see the recipe die.
Right.
So sometimes you find those little secret things, and you want to kind of see them last. So a couple other things, Rich. One, I want to ask you what's next for Hasty Bake, and that could kind of go in a bunch of different directions. But right now, between the people that are listening to this podcast and when we release it on social media, watch the video and all that, you have the ear of a really good chunk of the Hasty Bake ownership base. I would say probably maybe 60 to 70% of current day owners touch this in some way, shape, or form. So you kind of have the ear of that. Is there anything you want to say to folks who normally wouldn't get a chance to sit down and talk to you or even know who you were or whatever that you wanted to know about Hasty Bake or about you or about us or anything? I mean, it's just a good opportunity to kind of.
Well, the thing I would say just to the customer base is that, we're here. I'm still in business because of you guys. I mean, it truly is a word of mouth. Yeah. We talk about it all the time. You can spend all the money marketing, but it's a word of mouth sales product. And especially in the lean years, if it weren't for that fan base, promoting it for us, we wouldn't be here. There's no doubt. Yeah. So, it's that cult following is what's kept us alive and let us be successful. And so, very appreciative of that. And I think we all understand that base and try to do our best. I'm sure sometimes we fail, but we try to do our best to make them happy and keep them happy and all that stuff. So definitely appreciate that. I think the neat thing and the future of Hasty Bake and why, I think the future is really bright is that, the ability to market direct to someone. So, we thought, I kept saying the way you go broke in Hasty Bake is you go spend a bunch of marketing money. Well, if you think about it, at least when I was doing the marketing, if you ran a Tulsa, let's just say a local newspaper ad, you're casting a pretty wide net. You're paying $5,000 for an ad, and half the people don't even cook on charcoal, and then so what percent of that people are even remotely in the grill, grill market or interested in grilling? And it was so low, it was never cost effective, and so. I'm not a social media guy, but, it's just, I realized a few years ago that there was a huge opportunity and got you guys that are a lot better than I am at this, that know how to pinpoint that. And so you can find these guys and get that message to them. So to me, it's like being able to do that cooking demo that 15 years ago I was doing, or 25 years ago. Now you can do it. They can watch it on TV or, get a feel for it. They can hear other people brag about it on the, oh, I cook on one. Yeah, I love it. So it's really helped Hasty Bake dramatically. The ability to pinpoint those people and create that fan base, and whether it's our Facebook page that helps sell. Again, it really is our own customers that sell our product.
For sure,
100%.
I mean, they're always you guys will show me. Oh, this guy told this guy, oh yeah, to buy this model or whatever. And that's huge, and that's what's neat, because I just think, we didn't talk about it, but there was about a 10-year period where I just decided to quit marketing Hasty Bake. It was not, there was no formula that worked.
Right.
TV was diluted, newspapers, radio, whatever media you wanted, you just couldn't get to that person without it costing a fortune.
Right.
And so we didn't spend any money, and we still sold a decent amount of grills. And of course, we focused on the fab business, but it's just neat that, man, the word's getting out again.
Yeah.
And we can do it in a cost-effective manner. Yeah. And get more people cooking on the grills.
The neat thing about what we're able, and this is what I love about my job, what we're able to accomplish these days with marketing, is we can get, like you said, directly in front of the person who it matters. And that works in fun, sometimes creepy ways, to some of the information that you can get. Like we were looking today, we had a customer that was contacting us, and we were trying to figure out, he said, I was sent something, and I don't remember all the details.
Right.
So we were going back and figuring out, like, what was he sent from us that he was referencing? And we were able to see, like, where he clicked on an email and, like, what time he opened it and where he went on the site and what he looked at the site. You can follow this whole path, and it seems a little creepy. But at the same time, it's kind of the Google model that we're all in, where
Right.
we give up, I don't want to say security because that's not the right word, but we give up privacy
Right.
in exchange for convenience. And sometimes that's a good payoff. Sometimes it's not a good payoff. But in our world with marketing, the reason I like it is we can get in front of the people where this actually matters.
Right.
So if you're a bunch of guys sitting there watching football on a Saturday, and on TV comes 4 commercials, and one of them's a beer commercial, and one of them's a Victoria's Secret commercial, and another one's a tampon commercial, and another one's a baby food commercial. Well, one of those commercials might have resonated with you, right?
Right.
Like, oh, okay, I like Bud Light.
Right.
Fine. But then you sat through another 3 that have nothing to do with you. You're never going to buy their stuff. That's the old traditional model of advertising.
Right.
But now what we can do with digital is that same guy who's sitting there watching a YouTube video, every single thing he's advertised or gets advertised is something that applies to him.
Correct.
So it's way more efficient for the advertiser, and it's way
Yeah.
more efficient for the user because they're getting exposed to things like, hey, all of this matters to me. I
Right.
may not buy that grill, but it's grill related. I may not try that recipe, but I might like another recipe from the same guy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's made us really effective in our marketing to be able to reach out to people that they do want to cook on charcoal. They are interested in a high quality American made grill.
Mm-hmm.
This is the kind of world that they run in. So I'm with you. Like, I'm excited to be able to get in front of more people that this actually applies to,
Yeah.
because not only is your marketing dollars going to go a lot further, but your fan base is going to grow significantly because you're actually giving someone something that matters to them versus just background noise.
Yeah.
So we've been really effective, I think, with that over the last few years of doing some pretty good targeted marketing, and we've seen our community grow like crazy. We've seen the number of grills that we sell grow like crazy.
Yeah.
I think because we can serve people. And, that's always been my motto, and I drill it into my team here is, for every time we try to sell someone something, whether it's an email or a text message or whatever, like, I want to serve them 4 or 5 times before I try to sell.
Right.
So if you join our email list or something like that, you're going to get probably 1, maybe depending on the time of year, 2 emails a week. And about every 2 or 3 weeks, I'll let you know, hey, we got this thing on sale, or this is a new product.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's, here's a recipe you should try. Here's a couple of grilling tips. Hey, this is a good time of year to remember to cover your grill. It's all these things that like encourage people and educate them. And then every now and then we'll try to get you to buy something. But I think what that's done is that's allowed us to grow a community of people who are like, this company cares about us.
Yeah.
And we do.
Right.
And that's from the top down.
Yeah.
So Rich, I'll give you credit on that too, because you instill in everybody who you work for, there's a bar that we hold high in this company for everything from the quality we produce to how we handle customers and how we treat people, and
Yeah.
something you want to uphold. So
Well, I appreciate that, and those are the way we try to run this thing.
yeah. There's a lot of companies out there you can buy grills from, you can buy barbecue accessories or whatever from. Where I truly believe, and it's a dwindling list of people who it's still American made. It's still our hands touch it. We know exactly what's going on with the product. We actually care about it.
Yeah.
So it's something we'll hang our hat on. It's
Yep.
fun. Rich, anything else you want to tell people or say hi to anybody? Or
No, just there's a lot of people that have contributed over the years.
yeah, it's fun.
Tried to mention a few of them. Probably left
Yeah.
out a bunch that I wish I would have, but
Wow.
I appreciate them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to continue to try to get people on this podcast that matter to you guys.
Yeah.
Members of our grill community, members from company or clients or whatever that we work with that
Yeah.
we just think have interesting stories. We'll continue to do some history stuff, but this kind of sums up between our Jay Johnson episode where that dropped off and then where you picked up here. It kind of sums up the history of Hasty Bake.
Yeah.
And my hope for at least those 2 pieces of this podcast is that this kind of gives everyone a reference of, man, if I want to know the exhaustive history of Hasty Bake from day 1 through, Wednesday the 3rd, 2013, they can see 2023. I'm 10 years off.
And you were 1 day off.
And
It's
I
the
was
5th.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens when I'm getting old,
Yeah.
man. Can't look at the watch right. No, that gives you a good idea of kind of where the company was, and there's so many things that I'm sure we've left out, little stories and fun things. And as we hear them, we get a little notebook, we jot them down.
That's
and
right.
We got to remember to bring that up on a podcast.
Yeah.
So, a lot of fun. Awesome. Well, tune in. I don't know when this is going to drop. Probably in the next week or so. We'll probably be in Kansas City when it does.
Yeah.
But continue to give us a follow on all the fun social media places: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
Yep.
Tulsa Grill Store is another good fun place to follow. Tiffany has a lot of fun doing all the social media stuff for Tulsa Grill Store, and you'll see her face on that quite a bit.
Yeah.
So that's good. But yeah, like, follow, subscribe, do all the fun stuff. We will see you guys next time.
Yep.
And continue to tune in. We appreciate y'all. Have a
Thanks,
good one.
everybody.
Thanks.
See ya.
Thanks.
Wait a minute, Pop, wait a minute. What's your best whiskey? Kentucky bourbon, 11 years old.